Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. A team that as of literally 2 weeks ago today was literally ranked #1 in the country. And we were talking about, is this the best team in college football? Can they win a national championship? Now, a little bit to my credit, I even after they beat Georgia, I still had Alabama ranked behind Texas and Tennessee in my SEC power rankings. But I only bring it up to say that 2 weeks after beating Georgia and being ranked #1 in all the polls, you know, to quote Jay-Z, there's an old Jay-Z song, "It was all good just a week ago." Well, it was all good just about 10, 11 days ago for Alabama, but Alabama, coming off the loss to Vanderbilt, played South Carolina at home, and we don't have to get into a ton of the particulars and a ton of all the details. The game is 48 hours old by now, but at the same time, I'm here to tell you, a second straight disappointing performance, really a third straight disappointing performance for the defense, and it's starting to feel like our Bama fans, maybe tiny, possibly, I don't want to say totally turning on Kalen Deboer, but there is definitely some very vocal frustration, especially with the defensive side of the ball. And I'll also say this. I think there's a lot of people asking Kalen Deboer, we know his background from the Pacific Northwest, is he really cut out to coach in the SEC because Bama's soft, they look disorganized, and I know that there's a lot of frustration. In terms of Saturday's game, listen, we don't have to get into a ton of it. I just said it a minute ago, but the game is 48 hours old at this point. But it was a game where Bama, over certain stretches, got dominated on both sides of the ball. We'll talk about that in a minute. And where South Carolina, as whatever they were, three touchdown underdog or whatever the final spread was, they had a chance to win it late. Again, we don't have to go through all the details. Crazy game. South Carolina puts up 1,000,000 points right before the half. Big drive to start the second half, and then late in the game, they score that touchdown, recover the onside kick, and if it wasn't for the Damani Jackson interception, who the heck knows if South Carolina pulls off the upset. But with it, there are two themes that are absolutely emerging about Alabama that I think are pretty much indisputable at this point, one of which has been discussed quite a bit, one which I actually don't think has been talked about nearly enough. The one that has been talked about a lot, and you can tell by the comments, and we're going to get to them in a second, Alabama's defense can't get people off the field, okay? So 2 weeks ago, they give up whatever it was. I think it was 26, 27 points to Georgia in the second half of the Georgia game. Last week, they got Pavia 40 points from Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia. So that wasn't good. And then this week, they give up close to 400 yards against a South Carolina team, which was struggling to move the football coming in. Lenoris Sellers is not a very good or very true pocket passer, and he was able to make some big plays with his arm. They finished with 374 yards of total offense. And listen, they were able to move the ball on this defense. It's becoming a recurring theme, and it ain't going to get any easier playing against Tennessee, even though Tennessee's struggling. It ain't going to get easier against LSU. It ain't going to get – there are concerns about this defense. I think the other thing about Alabama that we talked about a little bit in our reaction is you look at the offense. The offense is actually the part that's kind of concerning to me, beyond the defense, obviously, is you look at the offense. It's becoming increasingly give Jalen Milroe the ball and let him basically be the older cousin in the backyard Thanksgiving football game. You just give them the ball, let them run left, let them run right. You take Ryan Williams out of these games. They don't, I know Jeremy Bernard played well, but I don't know that they have like a big game receiver. And so Alabama's offense is increasingly just give Jalen Milroe the ball and hope that he's bigger and faster than everybody else. O-line can't block. I think the final stats were like 11 TFLs for South Carolina, 5 or 6 sacks. It was bad. It was ugly. And Alabama fans are letting people know about it. So what I want to do now, because again, the question's starting to emerge. Are people turning on Deboer? And I think as importantly, is Deboer like the guy at Alabama? By the way, we're going to try to get Ryan Fowler, my buddy from Tide 100.9, on the show this week to discuss it. but I want to go back and react to some comments and some commentary from Alabama fans that I got this weekend. So we did an immediate reaction video on YouTube. I also did a TikTok. That's right. Torres is on TikTok now. And the comments were kind of jarring. Now, to be fair to Bama fans, there were plenty that said, hey, look, it's going to take time. I want to welcome a new sponsor to the Aaron Torres pod, Blue Chew. Fellas, remember back in the day when you were always ready to go? Well, things change. You got a lot on your mind. Your football team isn't very good. Well, here's the good news. That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in chewable form. To get started, it's so easy. Just go to bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. No awkward trip to the doctors, no waiting at the pharmacy, no stink eyes, no raised eyebrows, nothing. Thing is, though, I know a lot of you are probably wondering, Torres, does it actually work? Do you think I need to try it? Well, here's the deal. Try it for a month for free, and I think there will be no turning back, all right? You'll love it. Your partner is going to love it. Your football team may stink, but you'll be rocking like the 85 Bears between the sheets. So go ahead, try it out, and here is the great news. We have a special offer for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. You can try Blue Chew for free when you use the code Torres at checkout. All you got to do is pay $5 in shipping. Go to bluechew.com, use promo code Torres at checkout. You get Blue Chew for free for a free month, and you only have to pay $5 shipping. Again, visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. Thank you to Blue Chew for sponsoring the Aaron Torres podcast. It's a process. There's no Nick Saban walking around that's going to fix this thing overnight. But there were also a lot of others that are not happy. Producer Matt, why don't you pop up some of those graphics? We'll read them out loud here for the audience, the verbal audience, that's listening on podcast. All right, so Stud789 on YouTube says, Womack needs to go. That's in reference to the defensive coordinator. Pretty straightforward, pretty to the point. What do we got now? This is from, it looks like Chuckets says, Deboer's past experience did not prepare him for the SEC. Harsin, as in Brian Harsin, and Fisher had much more success and experience than Deboer, and they failed in the SEC. At this time in the season, without Milroe, Alabama is in last place in the SEC. So before we get to the next comment, listen, Chuckets, I know you're frustrated. Don't think that Kalen Deboer was more accomplished than, I don't think that Brian Harsin was more accomplished than Kalen Deboer when he got to the SEC. Now, Jimbo Fisher did win a national championship. Deboer did coach in a national championship game last year. What was the final stat line? He was 25-3 overall at Washington. But I don't think they'd be in last place without Milroe, but they'd be struggling. And again, this is speaking to how Alabama fans feel about the state of the program. Let's get a couple more before we kind of react to this. All right. My local elementary school Pee-wee team looks better coached than this team. That's from Ron TDB. Not ideal. What else we got, producer Matt? Honky Kong says this entire team is playing like they've never touched a football. It's incredible. The answer to can we win this year under DeBoer is nope. We are going to make the playoff. We aren't going to make the playoff even stacked as talent. We got nothing but problems left in the schedule with the exception of Mercer. So that is not ideal. What else we got, producer Matt? We'll get to one or two more. We don't have to read all of them. I had producer Matt pull about 10 of them. Well, this one's interesting. P. Smiley. Alabama is ass, unfortunately, okay? I don't know that I'd quite go that far, but they have not been good. Let's get to one more. Do we have the one about the black shirt, producer Matt? That one was maybe my favorite one. Let me know if we have it. So this was from TikTok. Okay, let me see if I can find it on TikTok really quick. It was an all-timer because basically the insinuation was that Kalen Deboer wearing a black shirt is the reason that Alabama cannot win. Let me see if I can find it really quick. This what we did have on TikTok. We had Alaskan Eileen say, when your coach lets players make TikToks during halftime, DeBoer is the problem. And then let's see here. We got a lot more comments. Let's see here. Rogue 1776 times 2 says, Deboer, no black Bama shirts. Why don't you get it? They are bad luck. So, a lot of different things to cover there, but the bottom line is Bama fans are not happy. Yes, you can see it on the scroller. Deboer, why don't you get it? Black shirts are bad luck. Now, let's talk about Deboer here for a second. Listen, and I want to be clear again. I think there are a certain contingent of Alabama fans that are very frustrated. I think there are a lot of contingent of Alabama fans, and I need to be fair, that have transparently said, like, look, this is a process. If you didn't expect a little bit of a drop-off without Nick Saban, you're out of your mind. We're going to be okay. But at the same time, as far as the board right there, listen, I'll be honest, maybe I look stupid in 6 months or a year. I don't think he is the problem. I don't think he is a bad coach. I don't think he is in over his head at Alabama. Now, do I think a few things? One, do I think that for any coach, it's an adjustment to the SEC when you've never been there? Of course I do. Same time, we all know the stats, right? Urban Meyer had never coached in the SEC, got to Florida. He did pretty well. Brian Kelly, you can make fun of Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly, back-to-back 10-win seasons to start at LSU. LSU now 5-1 midway through year 3. Nick Saban, never been in the SEC prior to LSU, wins a national championship there. So I don't buy that, like, guys just aren't built. But I do think Deboer, listen, it's just not in his nature. He's not going to be Nick Saban yelling and screaming, and to use the quote about Lane Kiffin, providing ass-chewing. That's just not who he is. Doesn't mean he can't coach. Doesn't mean he doesn't have discipline in his program. But I do think it's kind of that thing of, like, how do you get these guys to play with a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder? It was funny, and I'll say this really quick. I was traveling last Thursday, and on Thursday, it was funny. I was just in an airport, and I see a buddy of mine in the media, and we started talking. Where you going? Da da da. Oh, I'm going down to Tuscaloosa. I was down there a few weeks ago for one of their other games. Going down there for this one, and he said, being around that team, he said, I just don't feel like they have that killer instinct. But here's my question: if you look at college football right now, like, I was thinking about this. Who actually does have who do we know that has the answer? And if the answer is not Deboer, who is it? Because Ryan Day, his fan base is mad at him right now. There's no doubt about that. You look at Dan Lanning, everybody was saying that guy never won a big game prior to this week. Kirby, don't even get me started on Kirby. They had another player arrested this weekend. He's winning games, but that program seems to be going in the wrong direction. Struggle against Mississippi State. Producer Matt will tell you that Auburn game, I don't want to sit there and say that Auburn was going to win it, but Georgia didn't pull away. Georgia wasn't dominant. Georgia isn't a great team right now, and they got a million problems off the field. And so if the answer is that Kalen Deboer is not the answer, that Kalen Deboer is the problem, do I think he could run maybe a little bit of a tighter ship? Maybe. But I also just think this is the bottom line. And I do think in this era of college football, it's just, especially in the SEC, it is going to be really hard to continually put together elite teams, elite programs in a situation where you are competing at the absolute apex every single season. By the way, this is part of why Nick Saban got out, right? He just didn't feel like he could put together teams at the highest level every single year. He didn't feel like he was doing the job at the capability of what he was doing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. By the way, it's not like Nick Saban didn't have problems kind of getting guys on the same page. Remember 2 years ago, Bryce Young, Will Anderson, first and third pick in the draft, was supposed to be Saban's most talented team, missed the college football playoff. So I just bring it up to say, like, I get the frustration of Bama fans, but I'll also sit there and say, I just think this is part of the process, part of the learning curve. The defense certainly needs to get better, but I think he's kind of limited. DeBoer, some of the pieces on his roster, I don't think Jalen Milroe is the perfect quarterback for the system, even though I think he's doing as well as you could with Jalen Milroe. Don't think he's got the receivers that he wants outside of Ryan Williams and maybe Jeremy Bernard. So it's a process, but it ain't going to get any easier because I think that Tennessee game is going to be so tough on the road this weekend. Alabama fans, not very happy with Kalen Deboer.